Welcome, class 12th. Here we are going to conclude chapter 1, the last lesson from your Flamingo textbook. As in the previous class, you have understood the story here revolves around the French villages. So we come to know when the French country lost its battle against the Prussian army, they had to give away their border districts of Alsace and Lorraine to the German country. So here we will see that how this order changed the atmosphere of the village people, and it also impacted the school and the school children. Here the schoolboy Franz, when he made entry in the school, he found the unusual silence prevailing there in the school. He also found his French teacher, M. Hamel, is also transformed, and then he found the teacher was in the very special dress. So he was shocked to find the change in the teacher, and then he also found the whole school seemed very solemn and strange that day. And he also found that there were the important villagers sitting at the back benches of the classroom. Suddenly, he noticed that the teacher stood up from the chair and made a shocking announcement in the class that there was the ban of using and learning the French language in the school. Well, children, we are going to see how the order impacted the whole atmosphere of the district. Let's now see and understand. My last French lesson. Why? I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn anymore. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking birds' eggs or going sliding on the Saar. Children, Saar is a river which passes through France. Children, here in these lines, the narrator, that is a school-going boy, Franz, he is repenting for not learning his mother tongue, that is a French language. He is feeling sorry why he had not paid attention to learn his mother tongue, as the German people had now banned the learning and speaking of the French language in the border districts of Alsace and Lorraine, which had been now given to the German people. So the rule came from Berlin to ban it now thoroughly in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. However, feeling sorry for not being serious towards his studies and for learning their mother tongue, French language, so the boy, he started now even reminding how he had wasted his precious time by bunking the school and going away and engaging himself in the useless activities like collecting the birds' eggs and sometimes going sliding on the Saar river, and so on. He started about his mistakes which affected his studies. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry. My grammar and my history of the saints were old friends now that I could not give up. Nuisance, children, that means problem or burden. Here, the writer informed us. Till now, Franz, the school going little boy, he was considering his books to be the unwanted things. He took them to be the burden. But suddenly, when he came to know that he was completely deprived of these books and his language, he started considering them to be his best friends, whom he now did not want to leave. However, the writer here wants to display the changes which had come in the boy after hearing the news that the French language is not now available for learning to this boy in the school. And I'm hammered to the idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. Cranky means strange or short tempered. The news about the teachers also departing from the school forever, it made the boy even to forget about the short tempered and the rude nature of their teacher Amhammer. He forgot all the punishment and all the crankiness of his teacher. Poor man, it was in honor of this last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes. The poor man here refers to be the helpless man. So the boy started feeling sorry for the teacher. He now understood it was in honor of his last lesson in the school that the teacher had put on his fine Sunday clothes. The boy understood that was the reason of the presence of the village people at the back of the classroom. It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. Moreover, the villagers were now feeling sorry for not attending the school in their childhood and studying well when there was the time. So they were all repenting and sitting to realize their guilt. However, with their presence in the class that day, the villagers wanted to express their gratitude towards the teacher Amhammer, who had spent a long 40 years of his sincere service to the school and to his language. So that's why, with their presence in the class, they were showing their respect for the teacher and also for the country, which was theirs no more, as these two border districts of France had lost their freedom and they had now become the part of the Germany. That's why they were showing their patriotism with the presence in the class. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. However, while the boy Franz was confused and upset about all these changes, suddenly he heard his name was called by the teacher for reciting some poem in the class. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through very loud and clear and without one mistake. Dreadful, that means frightening. As you know, the news of banning the French language in their district, it had greatly impacted France. But he was quite eager to read clearly and thoroughly the task asked by the teacher but he failed to do so. He wanted that he should recite the topic in one go and without even committing the single mistake, and he should please the teacher on the very last day of the school. But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there holding on to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. As the learning of the boy France, it was not so proper. So he got confused and mixed up even the first words and stood blankly and quietly in the class. His heart was beating fast as he was feeling ashamed and insulted of himself. And furthermore, he did not have the courage to look at the face of the teacher. He did not want to get the teacher disappointed on his last lesson. I heard Hamel say to me, "I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time. I will learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we have come out." Here, this time the boy was surprised. Instead of scolding, the boy, Hamel, was giving the suggestion and pointing to the boy that it was of no use to get angry at the boy. Though the teacher said that he understood that the boy was feeling quite bad. Today, that was the last day of French teaching in the school by the teacher. However, the boy was surprised to see that though he did the wrong reading on the last day of the French teacher in the class, instead of scolding him, the teacher was giving him suggestion. He was saying that though the boy was that day feeling ashamed and insulting for doing the wrong recitation, but he tried to comment upon that he used to advise about the same thing to the children in the class, that every day they were making the excuse that they would study the next day. But now, today, they had to repent, to think that they had all the opportunities and the chances to study their own mother tongue. The chances had gone for studying. Now, he addressed to the boy by saying that see how the things had taken them, that today they had been deprived to speak and learn even their mother tongue. So now they have to ponder about their carelessness. Their carelessness and negligence for this. Now they have to ponder and think deeply about their negligence and carelessness for which they were deprived of their freedom to live and even to speak their mother tongue in their own country. That's the great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow, and now those fellows out there will have the right to say to you. Further, the teacher, Hammer, made the comment about all the people of their district, that is Alsace. He said all the citizens of this part of the country, they were all non-serious and careless. That's why now onward they had to suffer in the life. As always, all of them put the learning till the next day. But now there was now no next day of the freedom for them. All of them had to undergo with the sufferings and the insults of the slavery by the hands of the German people. Now, those fellows out there will have the right to say to you, how is it you pretend to be Frenchmen and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language? However, here the teacher informs the class that the enemies of the country, these are the Prussians, would now laugh at them and would comment which kind of the French people they are, who did not have the right either to speak or write their own mother tongue, as they were deprived of this fundamental right to speak or use their own mother tongue, as their districts had been given to the Prussians when they lost the battle. But you are not the worst, poor little France. We have all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. Reproach, that means blame. Here, am Hammer comments about the nature of the whole French people, including the people of Alsace. He said they all were to be blamed for this slavery, as none was serious and sincere about their duty towards their country and their learning in the school. That's why they had to now suffer in the life. But here am Hammer. He consoles the boy by saying that it was not his guilt to feel offensive or guilty. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at the mills so as to have a little more money. And I have been to blame also. Here in this paragraph, the teacher started criticizing everyone one by one for affecting the learning of the little school children. He started first with the parents of the school children. He said that they were least bothered about the learning of their own mother tongue by the school children in the school. He said that all the time the parents, they were more excited to put their young children to work in the fields or in the mills and factories, so to earn a little some more money in their life. That means they were not interested in getting them educated. So that's why, for making them to earn the money in the life, they were sending them on the workplaces. And next, the teacher blamed himself also for not making the children learn properly their mother tongue. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning a lesson? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? Here, he gave the explanation how he also created the hurdle in the learning of the children. He said that more often he used to take the extra work by the school children. So instead of teaching them, he was also doing such activities. He used to send them to his home to water the plants there. And sometimes when he was not in the mood to teach the school children, he used to declare the holiday for his personal enjoyment. So, in this way, he said everyone, all adults of the city, were responsible for affecting the learning of their own mother tongue in the schools. Then, from one thing to another, M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world. Here, the teacher first of all criticized the habits of carelessness and negligence of all French people, including Alsace district, and then he started blaming himself and all parents for not paying attention to the learning of the children. And here next he started talking about the importance of the mother tongue, that is French language. He considers the French language to be the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it, because when a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to their prison. Here, calling the French language to be the most beautiful, the clearest, and the most language in the world, he again insisted all the class to guard their language. That means he wants the children that they must preserve their mother tongue. Though the ruling has come now not to speak and write in their own mother tongue, that is the French language, he insisted that it is the duty of all the children to have the protection of their own mother tongue, as it is the only way to free themselves from the prison of the slavery. That means here the teachers wants to emphasize till the time the people who get enslaved, if they hold fast to the language, then nobody could enslave them for the long time. However, the teacher here is emphasizes to the class that they should preserve their language and they should continue to use their mother tongue, as he said, if any country people, whether they get enslaved till the time they are holding tightly and preserving their mother tongue, then it would become easy for them to get the key to their freedom. Then nobody can enslave them for the longer. That means he wants to say that knowing their mother tongue and continuing using it would become a tool to fight against any domination and to get back their freedom. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. Hence, after channelizing the minds of the young children towards the advancement of the country by upholding their tradition and culture, finally the teacher Amhammer started his last French lesson in the class. Thus, he started teaching the lesson of grammar in the class. Even Franz, the schoolboy, he was surprised to see that he understood everything very thoroughly and clearly in the class that day. All he said seemed so easy, so easy. I think too that I never listened so carefully and that he never explained everything with so much patience. Here in these lines, the little Franz made confession. He said it was for the first time in the class that all the learning was seeming to be quite easy and easy. He gave the reason. It would be that it was for the first time he was paying attention to the teacher so cautiously and sincerely, And also, the teacher was explaining the things with so much patience and calmly. So, these were the reasons that he understood clearly everything in the class. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away and to put it all into our heads at one stroke. So it seemed to the little boy that the teacher also wanted that day to put all his own learning of his life to the class that day. But it was not possible that everything which he knew could be learned in a single day and in a single stroke. So that was impossible to learn everything of the language only in a single day in just few moments. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day, Hamel had new copies for us, written in a beautiful round hand, France, Alsace, France, Alsace. Here it is explained after the grammar lesson, then they had a lesson in writing in the class. However, it is told in every notebook which was given by M. Hamel to the class, there were written the beautiful words which were France, Alsace, France, Alsace. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the rod at the top of a desk. Children, just like the flags of the nation represent the identity or the existence of any nation or government in the world. Similarly, the words of the languages represent the identity or the culture of every nation. Here the French teacher has intentionally written these beautiful French words in the notebooks of the small children. So the words France, Alsace, France, Alsace. However, the teacher wished that with the use of these words, he would inculcate the feelings of patriotism in the minds of the small children. They would always remember that their district Alsace is now enslaved by the German country, but still they would remember the fact that their motherland is France. So they have to make the efforts in the coming future to retain their freedom from the Germany. That's why he has intentionally written these words in their notebooks. Well, that was the reason that everyone, including the small kids, were engaged in learning and capturing in their mind hooks the French letters on the very last day. On the roof, the pigeons cooed very low, and I thought to myself, well, they make them sing in German. Even the pigeons cooed, that is, the sound produced. But the birds like pigeons. So here it is mentioned, while the students were busy in writing quietly the letters of the French language in their notebooks, the narrator, that is the boy France, he started thinking when he heard the sound of the pigeons made at the roof of the class. Here, the writer wants to convey the message that language is the birthright of every human being. We can't deprive anyone of their mother tongue, and also we cannot force our own language upon others, whether it be the birds or the French people. That means how this cruel rule has deeply and badly impacted even the tender minds of the small children. They are also hurt with this now cruel rule. Whenever I looked from my writing, I saw Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. Here it is mentioned while doing his writing task, Franz looked again and again to see his French teacher, M. Hamel, who was sitting still and was gazing at the different things in the classroom. It seems that he wanted to memorize the look or the appearance of everything of this school room before his departure. Fancy, for 40 years he had been there in the same place with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him. Fancy here means assuming or dreaming. Here the writer mentions that we could imagine in our mind the condition of some helpless man like M. Hamel who had been teaching at the same place in that school for the last 40 years. Only the desk and the benches had been once smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller and the pine that he planted himself trained about the windows to the roof. Once smooth, that means worn out or become smooth, something due to the overuse. Hopine, it is a kind of climber. It is mentioned that M. Hamel had been teaching here in the same place with a garden outside the window and this class that is in front of him since the long lifespan of 40 years. So all the changes and the growth of the school he himself had seen and observed. Only changes actually that had gone in the school were that the desks in the classroom had worn out due to the overuse in the school over the years. The second change that he noticed that was about the growth of the walnut trees in the school garden. It had also grown taller and lengthy before his eyes. And next thing which he noticed about the growth of the school that was about the hopine, a climber that has grown outside of the school building and had now reached to the roof of the school. So all these changes he himself had observed and seen. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks. So next it is mentioned, so it has become very hard for this helpless man, this teacher, now to leave everything at a single instance. So it was very difficult for him to leave the school forever. However, it is here told how this poor helpless man would be feeling when he was served this notice to leave the school instantly, where he had spent a long period of 40 years of his life. Here, next, all of them, they heard the sound of Hammer's sister packing and moving the luggage, as they had now to leave the city forever from the next day. So that's why she was completing her packing. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. So it is mentioned, though the teacher's heart was completely shattered, but still he remained composed and heard the lesson till the end of the class and the school. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their ba, be, bi, bo, boo. Hence, after completing the writing task, there was the lesson on the history subject, which was followed by the class of phonetics thereafter, where the children started reciting the sounds of alphabets. So this practice was done by the tiny tots of the school. Hence the small children, their drill practice of alphabets in the class. Down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. Next it is mentioned, after this practice, Hauser, that was the retired teacher of the school, he also got ready by putting his specs and holding the primer book in his hands. He started now giving the practice of the alphabets and the letters with the class. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well I remember it, that last lesson. Trembles means shaking. Here, Franz, the narrator, mentioned that his own feelings were mixed up. That moment, he was also becoming emotional, though he found it funny to see how the old man, Hauser, he was crying and also he was shaking. But he was continuing his practice of giving the drill practice to the class. Though the narrator's own feelings had been disturbed and mixed up due to the happenings, but to find their old teacher, Hauser, crying and trembling due to the emotions, they, on the other hand, all the children wanted to laugh and cry simultaneously on this situation. But still, Franz here accepted that he could never forget this last lesson. All at once, the church clock struck 12, then the Angelus. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill sounded under our windows. Children, Angelus here means a bell rung as a call to recite the Angelus. That is a devotional prayer sung in the Roman Catholic Church. In fact, this prayer bell ringing is a mark of the start of the prayer song in the churches. Here it is explained, at the moment when this church clock struck 12, there was the entry of the Prussian soldiers in the streets just near the windows of Franz school. So the sound of the trumpets played by the Prussian soldiers. So this was the mark of returning of these soldiers from their drill practice. So it was heard very close to the window of the Franz school. M. Hammer stood up, very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. Pale is used to describe a person's face or skin. That is a mark of the weakness. So here it is explained, when M. Hammer heard the sound of the trumpet, this musical instrument played by the Prussian soldiers, he at once stood up from his chair. His face was looking quite dull and colorless, but he got up from the chair, and that moment Franz noticed that the teacher was looking quite heightened that day in the class. My friends, said he, but something choked him. He could not go on. Choked, that means to become unable to speak due to the strong emotions or the feelings. I'm Hammer. He now tried to speak something but could not continue as he was overpowered by his emotions. That's why he failed to utter a single word. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, he wrote as large as he could. Might, that means strength. Hence, at the final moment, Hammer took a piece of chalk and then wrote the words on the blackboard. Vive la France! So, by assembling all his strength, now the teacher wrote the words Vive la France, that means long live France, on the blackboard as large as he could. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word, he made a gesture to us with his hand. School is dismissed. You may go. Hence, this way, Hammer concludes his last French lesson. With this now moment, he had to leave the school and the district forever. He became so much emotional and hurt that the words choked in his throat. But he concludes his lesson by writing on the board the words Vive la France. And then he makes the signal to the class with only raising his hand to indicate that the school is dismissed and the students can go back home. Well, children, I hope you have all well understood the explanation. Thank you for watching the video. Kindly do send your feedbacks with your comments. God bless you all.